Okay, hi everyone. Right, so just I suppose before I start off, just to thank my co-authors, just myself and Alan Stevens were the authors on it, but we had a lot of input from my colleagues, Paddy Morris, Caroline Wynne, Dave Shannon, Ken Buck and Jenny Deacon, who had significant input into the report, so just to acknowledge that. Just by way of introduction, I suppose I'd start off to say, why is this important? When I'm talking about water quality, what am I talking about? I'll say a little bit on the current situation, the significant pressures and the issues that we have, the responses and the outlook, and I suppose some people were starting with their key messages. I'll finish with the key messages. So I'm preaching to the converted here, but I think it bears repeating. Why are we doing this? Why is it important? Water is essential to life. So our rivers, our lakes, our estuaries, our coastal waters and our groundwaters, they sustain our livelihoods, our food production. I'm trying to pick which screen to look at here. Our industries, our tourism, our recreational activities, and they're an integral part to our culture and our heritage. So they're critically important to us, but they're also critically important to our wildlife as well, which need a kind of a healthy environment to thrive in. So if it's so important, it's incumbent on us to protect it and to restore it. So we have to protect it and maintain it, because without that clean and healthy water, we can't sustain a vibrant society or a thriving aquatic environment. A little bit on water quality and explaining what it's about. This isn't in the report. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. I'm going to be talking about things being at high status and good status. High and good is where we want to be. And I suppose there's a lot in the surface waters and groundwaters. We look at things like the biological quality elements, the physical chemical elements, the hydromorphological elements, and I don't think Andy is here, but Andy gets a prize for being the first person to say hydromorphology today. We have an extensive monitoring program that's undertaken by the EPA and various state agencies as well, and we classify and report then on the water quality of our surface waters and our groundwaters. And most of that, the data today, comes from our water quality report from 2019 to 2021. That's the last full current assessment that we did. And then we kind of go in and look at indicators. So, and you can see on the graph on the left there, the little, not the graph, but the little diagram, things like the biological quality elements, the physical chemical elements like nutrients and things. We get little indicators from them, and we kind of put in little interim indicator reports in between the main assessments. So they're kind of more up-to-date data. So when I'm talking about those 5 status classes, high, good, moderate, poor, and bad, you can see this little graphic here with our fish, just to explain what's going on. When we're looking at high and good quality, we're looking at clean, healthy, resilient ecosystems. You've got your happy fish. And the thing there is that it's a happy environment, it's thriving, and we need to protect that. Anywhere down then below that, moderate, poor, and bad, you're looking at altered ecosystems. They're impaired, they have less resilience, and you can see the environment and the aquatic ecology is not as good in those environments, and we're looking to restore them. I don't know if you can make out those little arrows with lines down through them. We don't want to go down the way, we want to be going back up. We don't want to be declining. We want to be restoring and maintaining. So the current situation, Andy showed this earlier, I don't have the map up on this, but currently, and this is again from 2019 to 2021, so this is our latest full assessment. We're doing the next full assessment will be next year, and we'll be bringing in data from this year into that. But 54% of our surface waters, so that's our rivers, our lakes, our transitional or our estuaries, and our coastal waters are in high or good status currently. As you can see down there, then we've them broken up. So our estuaries, they're currently the worst water quality. I think where we 36% of them are good or better. And our coastal waters have the highest percentage in satisfactory condition. And I think in this last assessment that we did, we noticed quite a marked decline in the ecological status of our estuaries. Moving on to chemical status then. I have 2 graphs there. So this is like with ubiquitous substances and excluding ubiquitous substances. And the reason I'm doing that is because if we include the ubiquitous substances, we can see that we failed on 50% of the waters that we've monitored. If we take out the ubiquitous substances, we failed on 12%. And the reason we do this is because ubiquitous substances are widespread in the aquatic environment. They're very difficult to deal with, and it kind of gives, I suppose, a realistic picture of what's out there. So an example of it, and I picked mercury because I'm not a chemist and I can't pronounce the rest of the chemicals. So mercury is widespread in the aquatic environment. It comes from burning of fossil fuels, volcanic eruptions. It comes from atmospheric deposition. And I know that when we look at our biota, such as our fish tissues, we're failing for mercury. And that's happening across Europe. So that's an example of a ubiquitous pollutant. Moving on to groundwaters briefly as well. It's a pretty good picture, I suppose, with a few localized exceptions. The water quality of groundwater is pretty good. So 92% of our groundwater bodies are in good chemical status. Over 99% of them are in good quantitative status. So we combine them, then 91% of the groundwater bodies meet both objectives, and that's accounting for about 97% of the country by area. If we look across time then, and this is back to our surface water ecological status, again, our rivers, our lakes, our estuaries and coastal regions. If we go from 2007 up to 2021, and we're talking about these high, good, moderate, poor and bad, again, if you look at the top graph there, you can see that we've been moving gradually towards the left. There's less and less of the greens and the blues. We need to be shifting that line back this way. We need more high and good. We have been getting better at dealing with the bads. You can see the numbers are going down there, but it's not good enough. We need our moderates and our poors to be reducing and the highs and goods to be increasing. A little bit on the significant pressures, and this has been reported recently on the EPA website. My colleagues in the catchments unit have carried out these assessments. 36% of our water bodies are at risk of not meeting their objectives. So, we need action in all sectors, but the top 4 that we're picking out here, as you can see, as significant pressures are agriculture, hydromorphology, there's that word again, and I'll explain a little bit more about that, forestry, and then urban wastewater. In terms of hydromorphology, you can see there's been quite a jump between the assessments there, but a lot of that is because we're currently, we're learning about it as we go. So just a brief overview of what's going on. There's been a lot said about agriculture today, so I won't dwell on it, but the main issue is loss of nutrients, and then I suppose in relation to that there is various issues with sediments and hazardous chemicals as well, like pesticides and herbicides. Hydromorphology then, that affects of the region of about 448 water bodies. So that's things like changes to the flow and the physical habitats of the water. So that's things like drainage, channelization, urbanization, dredging. They can affect the ecological balance of those water bodies. For forestry then, we're looking at the activities that affect them. So it's the forest roadworks, thinning, clear felling, and they can cause things like the release of sediments, nutrients and pesticides into our water bodies as well. And they can also have a hydromorphological impact too. And then urban wastewater. There's 197 water bodies affected by that. And the main issue there, again, is nutrients, organic pollution, and the release of pathogens from poorly or untreated sewage as well. Okay, so just going into the main issues. So if I dwell a bit on nutrients, if we look at river nitrate there in the map on the right, 42% of our river sites have unsatisfactory nitrate concentrations. And this is taken from our indicators report, so it brings data up to 2023. And you can see in the south and the southeast of the country, our orange and reds and yellow colours. The main issues are down the south and the southeast as well, in terms of high nitrate concentrations in the country and our rivers. And these have nitrate concentrations that impact on our marine environment when they discharge. We're not seeing an improvement in that picture, so we need to see that changing. Moving down then to our nitrogen in our estuaries and coastal waters, and Robert may touch on this in his presentation as well, but 17% of water bodies in our estuaries and coastal areas have unsatisfactory nitrate concentrations. Again, as it mirrors, I suppose, what's happening in the rivers, is it's down in the south and the southeast is where we can see these issues. And again, we're not seeing an improvement in that picture. If I move quickly on to phosphate in rivers, 27% of sites have unsatisfactory phosphate concentrations. It's, I suppose, a bit of a more nuanced picture there, but there's no improvement there either, and you can see where the hot spots are, but it's pretty much a kind of a static picture also. Total phosphorus in lakes then, 35% of lakes have unsatisfactory total phosphorus concentrations, so they're in breach of the WFD standards. The majority of them are here in the border region. A lot of you will know that and be familiar with that. We're not seeing an improvement there either. I suppose there's more of a difficult problem there because there's a lag time going to be involved with those lakes. So if we do even turn off the source of phosphorus into those lakes, there's a kind of a sedimentary effect and a legacy store there. So that will take a while to improve. So in terms of responses, well, the Water Action Plan was published in September. So it was late, we all know that. But that's a blueprint by which Ireland, we will be addressing our water quality issues. That needs to be effectively implemented and tracked. That's going to be our main vehicle by which we improve things. It's a simple statement, but the nutrient levels in our waters need to decrease. We need targeted action, and to borrow a phrase from my colleagues in catchments as well, we need the right measures to be in the right place. We need full implementation of the Nitrates Action Programme, and that includes compliance in the National Agricultural Inspection Programme, which I think was mentioned earlier today as well, that the EPA are coordinating with the local authorities. Uiscéireann need to continue to prioritise investment in areas where wastewater is impacting on water quality. And this was mentioned last week when the EPA published the Urban Wastewater report. There is a lot of investment going in there. There is a plan. But I suppose in terms of a timescale, we need to see that ramped up. It's taken far too long. Community and stakeholder engagement is key. I suppose water quality is very much a local issue, and I know my colleagues from LawPro are here, and possibly some of the NGOs as well. It's really important to get local communities engaged in this kind of stuff so that they can take ownership and an interest in their local environment. Climate adaptation and water resilience need to be built into our plans as well, so we've covered that extensively today. And then I suppose feeding all this is our research and our innovation activities. There are a couple of large projects at the moment ongoing, so like the Waters of Life project is looking at kind of maintaining our pristine environments, our high status waters. And then there's the Farming for Water EIP, which is another large project looking at mitigating measures from farming on our water quality. So the outlook. So the EPA conducted a gap analysis on the measures in the Water Action Plan, and this focused on 34% of that 34% of the water bodies that are not going to achieve, are at risk of not achieving their objectives by 2027. I suppose the main message from that is that significant challenges remain if we're to get to those targets. If we want to see that chart I showed, things shifting more towards the right. These are kind of, the graph says it there, but this is the kind of the outcome of it, that up to about 300 water bodies are forecast to meet their targets. Approximately 650 may see some improvements. 864 water bodies have been kind of outlined. They don't have any specific targeted measures yet, so it's kind of unlikely to see how they would improve. And then there's limited information on about 500 water bodies, so where we just don't know what's going on with them in terms of a pressure. Just to finish up with the key messages then, I've said it before, and I suppose it's the simplest message really, is that we need to reduce our nutrients. So, nitrogen pollution is an issue in the south and southeast, and we need targeted measures for phosphorus as well. We need to see full implementation of existing legislation, high compliance rates across all regulated activities. Water governance structures need to be reviewed so that they can operate effectively. And I suppose one of the key things there is improved tracking of actions and progress in the Water Action Plan. There is a specific measure in there in the Water Action Plan of the setting up of a Programme Delivery Office, which will be key to this, because up to now we haven't been great at tracking as to what's actually been done. And again, as we've all been saying, it's essential to build in climate resilience into water quality as well. Just to thank everybody who contributed to the chapter, and thanks to all the external reviewers as well. Thanks for listening. And if you need to get any information on your local water body, go to catchments.ie and bang, 0.